UCAT is extremely important. Often it is weighted equally to your whole ATAR and all the subjects and time that you put into that. Now is crunch time. With year 12 underway and the UCAT slowly coming up, this is definitely crunch time. Not term 2, but especially it's actually crunch time now in term 1. Now, why is this? Well, when you go into term 2, you're gonna have a lot of tests, a lot of exams, assignments that you gotta finish up, and that is gonna take up a lot of time that you would otherwise spend on the UCAT. So that means that now is really important. You need to make sure that you're doing the right things at the right time. So in this video, I'm gonna be explaining some of the most important things to be aware of in year 12, in term 1, that you don't want to forget about, and make sure that you're prioritizing these certain things so that you don't fall behind and then have to cram the UCAT, which rarely goes well. Hey guys, Archie here, a third year medical student, and on this channel we focus on learning how to learn so we can spend our time more on the things and people that matter the most to us. Now, when I graduated, I was fortunate enough to get a 99.95 ATAR and entry into my top 3 medical schools that I had put down. So I wanted to make this video because I really want to make sure that you guys are able to use term 1 to the best utility that you can, so you don't fall behind and make a lot of mistakes that many other people do when they're going about balancing ATAR with UCAT. Now, I not only want to go through my experience going through the UCAT and what I've learned from that, but also the things that I've noticed and seen working with hundreds and hundreds of students going through the UCAT process year to year. And during this, you're going to learn a bit of the stuff that allows people to get 99th percentiles and 99.95 ATARs. So in this video, I'm going to be covering mostly 3 themes that are extremely important through this process. Looking at how we go about prioritization, basically the balance between year 12 work and UCAT, how to reduce the time spent on ATAR so that you can have more time to actually even fit in your UCAT preparation, and then also a lot to do with the mindset going into this sort of time. With so many students going for medicine or dentistry, there are so many students who miss out year to year. And so that means that there is a lot of mistakes that are made that allow people to fall behind others. And especially you guys watching this video, I don't want you to be in that sort of position. So let's get into it. The first one that I want to talk about is prioritization. Now, prioritization is something I've talked about on this channel multiple times before, but one of the most important things that we need to know about this is that it's not something that is basically, it can seem counterproductive at times. And so that means that we need to be very aware of how we can get caught out by how we prioritize things. So the best way to go about prioritizing your time, so spending enough time on UCAT and enough time on ATAR, is by ordering by importance and comparing this with the urgency of tasks. Now, the framework that explains how these two ideas come together is called the Eisenhower Matrix. I've got multiple videos that talk about this already and how I implement it using applications like Amazing Marvin, but the real idea here is that we want to spend time on things that are important first rather than the stuff that's urgent. And that may seem counterproductive. It may also seem counterintuitive because wouldn't you want to just get the urgent stuff done first so that you can have more time for the things that are important, get it out of the way so you don't have to think about it? Well, while parts of that are true, because of Parkinson's law and how work is just going to expand the time allocated to it, if you do homework as your first task, you'll just do it at a slower pace because it's not so urgent. And that takes time away from other things that would be more important. So what is something that's important and urgent? We would say that something that's important is something that has a long-term consequence for not getting it done. And something that's urgent is something that has a short-term consequence for us not getting it done. It's very easy for us to figure out what's urgent in our life. You know, it's something very normal for us to kind of feel, but to say if something's important is quite difficult. We often think importance means urgent. So how important is that UCAT practice that you have to do on a semi-consistent basis compared to doing some homework that's due soon or preparing for that next test or exam? Now, this is what I think helped me a lot through this process as well, and I recommend this to everyone. UCAT is extremely important. Often it is weighted equally to your whole ATAR and all the subjects and time that you put into that. So usually this means that UCAT should be one of the first things that you get done in your day. For me, I was usually waking up at 5, 6 a.m. throughout year 12 just to make sure that every single day I'd get at least 30 minutes of UCAT practice done. And 30 minutes is not a lot. You know, you can't really do much with that time. But by just getting that much done, it meant that I was able to prolong that often to an hour or an hour and a half. And then that was how much I was getting done per day. So this meant that with the consistency, it was very easy for me to only do a small amount of UCAT every day across the shorter period that I had to prepare for the exam. Just for reference, I mostly started my preparation in January because the UCAT was announced just a few months before, and previously we had the UMAT. Nowadays, people are preparing years in advance, like anywhere from 1 to 2 years in advance. And you want to do that as well if you do have that time advantage. But if you are not with that advantage, it means that you really have to acknowledge that now is crunch time. So if you can't do it in the morning, put it in the early afternoon. So let's say after you get home from school, you get that dump in energy, you take a sip of water or quickly energize yourself through some exercise, and you get straight to UCAT first. Because you have those assignments and tests coming up, and you're gonna have to prepare for them anyway, but the UCAT is something so easily that you could postpone and never think about. So that's the second best place to put it, straight after getting home. And this is how we order our schedule based on importance. We put the important stuff first and the urgent stuff later. Now, obviously, if you do have a test coming up, homework, that sort of stuff, and it is really urgent, you need to give yourself enough time at the end of the day to get that done, but we don't want this to compromise on the important stuff. Another thing that I want to touch on in this video is a lot of the deathly spirals and traps that are within the process of preparing for the UCAT. One of these being that a lot of people feel that they can't get enough high quality work done in their UCAT practice, so that becomes a procrastination point for them. They know they can't get a good solid 2 hours of UCAT practice done, so they're not gonna go ahead and do it. So this is the problem. Too often are students worried about the quality of their study sessions, whether it be UCAT or ATAR related, but they're not even having the habit in the first place of actually having the time to sit down and get some work done. So they're worried about the quality of the habit itself, when the habit and consistency isn't even there in the first place. So this is the thing with gym. I might not want to go to gym because I know it's just gonna be such a poor quality session because I'm just really, really tired. But I need to build the consistency of the habit so that in future I can worry about the quality. So I'm still just gonna rock up and master just that aspect of rocking up so that that habit is still being built and the consistency is there for me to improve on. Too many people just say, I'm not gonna get it done well, so I might as well just skip it. Now that's like the number one thing that eats up people's time to prepare for UCAT, especially in term 1 when things are a little bit not so busy. And then term 2 hits, and now it's just too busy that there's not even enough time literally to fit in UCAT. So because UCAT is so important, we just need to tick this off the box each day, and then we worry about all the ATAR stuff that we've got going on, which is far more urgent. Now, one of the other traps that a lot of people fall into is they, whether knowingly or unknowingly, fall into the trap of just spamming questions through the UCAT. Even for those who watch my videos or really know that spamming questions is not something that they should be doing, a lot of the time we can unknowingly fall into this as well. We often need to have times throughout our UCAT preparation to kind of do like a review, to see the quality of the work that we're putting into, our studies. So I do this often just as a life thing. Every week on a Sunday, I'm gonna evaluate how the week went and what I have planned for next week, and to see if I'm tracking towards my goals. We can very, very easily get stuck into the whole idea of being busy as opposed to being productive. And this is the exact same thing here. People can very easily fall into the habit of just putting lots of effort into UCAT without actually seeing any outcome coming out of that, seeing true improvement, instead of just seeing like a graph where your kind of like competency is just going like, up and down all the time. We want to see something that's going to have less jitter and is actually getting better and better and better. Now, when people just go ahead and start spamming questions, their graph is more of just like, they have good days, they have bad days, maybe they were just too tired on a day and that's why they didn't do so well, but that's really not actually the case. So if you genuinely had the skill, even if you have a bad day, your bad day is not going to be that bad. So often this is just an excuse for something deeper when it actually comes to your technique and your approach to answering the UCAT question. To be able to answer UCAT questions, there has to be a very systematic thought process that you take yourself through when answering any question, basically like a checklist. If you're just haphazardly using intuition, that's not really so good. So my recommendation here is to always spend time evaluating if what you're doing is actually working. And often this can be quite tricky, so it's really important that you are consuming the right information to know how to go about that process better. Because who knows, you could be blindly looking at what you're doing and thinking that it's all okay. So a lot of people find that making the time to consistently put into UCAT is something that's just not even really possible with the amount of stuff that they've got going on. And so that means that the only solution that you have is either to sacrifice other things that are happening in your life to get more time, or reduce the time that goes into your ATAR. It is quite difficult to reduce the amount of time required to reach mastery with the stuff that you need to know for the UCAT. But for ATAR, because it's more knowledge-based, it's a little bit easier. And the reason that ATAR is more knowledge-based is because it's a little bit easier to go ahead and cram. You can cram biology, physics, a little bit of maths as well, maybe even English. But when it comes to UCAT, because these are like skills that take a lot of time to kind of cultivate, it's not something that you can really reduce the time required to reach a level of mastery with. So this is just a quick reminder, essentially because my whole channel is about learning, how to become more efficient. And this is what a lot of people don't spend enough time focusing on. They think it's too late in year 12 to start changing up study techniques and such. And if that is something that you're thinking about as well, I want you to truly ask yourself this question. Do you confidently believe that the skills that you have right now when it comes to study is going to be able to get you that dream ATAR that you want? And this is with absolute certainty, even if you got sick and there's all these certain surprises that appeared, are you still going to be able to get that dream ATAR that you want? If the answer is no, well, then that means there is room for improvement. So why would it be too late to consider room for improvement and try and improve on that? The alternative would be that you just do the same things that you've always done, and then you're potentially not going to have the best chance of getting the ATAR that you really want. Now, the concern may be that if I change things up, well, then maybe it won't go well. But the problem is that the current situation that you may be in isn't going to go as well as you'd like anyway. So doing something else is probably going to be better. And another thing as well is that in year 12, there's actually quite a lot of time left with all the tests, assignments, and exams you've got coming up that haven't yet been finalized. There is still quite a lot of time to improve on these skills so that you can get better outcomes. So a lot of that comes back to mindset. And that's why actually preparation when it comes to UCAT, ATAR, life, all of your other commitments, balancing all this sort of thing, it often does come back to your mindset with these things. So when it comes to mindset, really there's two types of mindsets that I see that kind of differentiates those who are super high achievers versus the others. So the super high achievers are really have outcome-based mindsets, whereas those who are a little bit more concerned about doing lots of practice questions and putting in the effort, they have effort-based mindsets. So someone who has an effort-based mindset is really going to go ahead and ask a lot of the questions like, okay, have I studied enough for this? Have I put enough hours? Have I done enough notes? Have I done enough UCAT practice questions? Anything that shows how busy you've really been. Now, when we look at outcome-based mindsets, they're not really concerned about how much effort or how many questions needs to get done. It's really about have they achieved what they actually needed to. So this is the difference between, again, busyness versus productivity. Busyness is very easy to kind of measure, the output of work, how big is, the notes that you've written. Whereas being productive may not look like you have a lot of notes. Maybe you only had 1 page of notes, but now you've taught yourself a skill that is going to carry you through the rest of the work that you have to do for all of your studies. So if we take this in the context of UCAT, someone with an outcome-based mindset is solely worried about the accuracy that they're achieving within the tests that they're now doing. So they will be very, very focused on each element of how they may be making mistakes. Maybe they misread the question wrong. But there's something deeper than that, right? You misread the question while someone else didn't go ahead and misread the question, or at least they're gonna have less likelihood of misreading that question compared to you. So why is that? We question that, and we use the process of Kolb's exponential cycle, which I have a video about, talking about this in a lot more detail. And this is what really separates those who are very likely to get a high percentile in the UCAT. They are outcome-based in their mindset. They're solely focused on getting that result, and they are not worried about a lot of the insecurities that may come with not doing as many practice questions. And that's just a simple example as well. There's a lot, they're focused on the skills, developing that, being really reflective, very critical of themselves, to the point that if they are doing questions and they know that they're getting them right, they know that they're wasting their time. They should be spending their time on questions that they're getting wrong. And this is exactly the same thing that we see as well with people going for really high ATARs, in the 99 plus bracket, 99.95. If you're spending your time on maths questions and you're just getting all of them right, well, is that really the best use of your time? You want to find those questions that you're not able to do. You want to challenge yourself in ways that are going to be much more difficult for you to deal with and therefore lead to more learning. Whereas those who are effort-based may do a lot more of the questions that they feel good doing, and that makes them feel prepared for the test. And then next minute, they feel really prepared before the test, they sit the test and they realize, damn, I really don't know what's going on here. Or even worse is that they feel good in the test and then they walk out of it feeling really good as well. And then the test grade just is like completely, what they weren't expecting. And something that's very common with those with a more effort-based mindset is actually a reduced level of metacognition or meta learning. This is basically knowing how you learn and how you think, and actually having an objective way for you to gauge your performance. And if you do not have that objective way to measure if you are actually improving, then you won't know if you're improving. And this is the thing with the UCAT being 1 exam per year. If you do all your preparation and you think it was perfect and you sit the exam and then you just completely bomb it, that lack of metacognition and meta learning is really just going to screw up the year for you. Now this is getting into some really complicated stuff here, which is why I wasn't able to figure out all of this on my own. Now people ask me like what I did through my UCAT preparation. You're gonna have multiple videos about that, but I personally went with iCan Med and they taught me everything that I knew about the UCAT and being able to perform in that, do well enough to actually get 3 medical school offers in the end. So I've spoken to them again to see if I could get some form of discount for those who are really interested in having that sort of guidance, knowing literally everything that they need to do step by step, making it super easy so you don't have to reinvent the wheel and waste your time, especially when term 1 is crunch time. And so now what they've been able to do is to offer you guys a discount for if you're sitting the UCAT in 2022 or 2023. So for those sitting it in 2022, you're able to get $90 off. And if you're sitting in 2023, you're able to get $330 off. Now, working with their team was absolutely pivotal to me for me to catch out my own cognitive biases, my meta learning, my metacognition, and to know that I'm actually improving and on track. And if you want to learn more about them, this is where I got started by attending some of their free webinars that you can find on the link in the description. When I was going through this process, I had basically searched for every single UCAT preparation company that was out there. And in the end, I went with iCan Med just because I noticed how educationally sound the things that they were saying were, and that there was that logical underpinning behind what they were teaching. That meant that as I went into it, my progress wasn't just going everywhere like this, but actually going up in a steady curve. And before that, when I was with another previous company, well, my progress was just everywhere. So being able to send them a question 24/7 whenever I needed was extremely, extremely useful and made the process just a lot easier. So if you're really interested in spending the time that you are going to put to UCAT in the best way possible with no regrets, then I would recommend checking out iCan Med in the link in the description. They got myself and my friends into medical school, so I would definitely check out what they have to offer. All right, so that's just some of the stuff I want to quickly mention about balancing these 2 domains of your life in year 12. And if you want to watch anything more on my UCAT or studying, feel free to check out any of my other videos. All right, thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.